Hello and welcome to our Cloudbazaar Fireside Chat with myself, Drew Wilde, and our guest, Paul Maiorana. We appreciate Cloudbazaar for giving us this opportunity to discuss e-commerce and the open web. And congratulations, Cloudbazaar. This is 10 years doing this. Truly is the conference and trade show for web pros. I'll get into some quick introductions so that there's no strangers here. Myself, I am Drew Wilde. I work at Newfold Digital on the brand Bluehost.com. I have been working on the brand Bluehost.com for over 10 years in various different capacities. Currently, I am a product manager working on our WordPress hosting offerings and trying to make those as excellent as possible for the market. And now let me introduce Paul. Our guest today is the CEO of WooCommerce. Paul has spent over a decade of his career at Automattic, a distributed company passionate about making the web a better place, as we all know. As the CEO of WooCommerce, an open source platform built for WordPress, Paul is responsible for driving the overall business strategy and democratizing commerce and empowering anyone to sell anything, anywhere. Today, WooCommerce continues to grow as the most popular e-commerce platform on the open web. Prior to becoming CEO, Paul was the Vice President of Business Development for WooCommerce. Before transitioning to WooCommerce, he was on a leadership team for Automattic as the Vice President of Platform Services, where he led the WordPress.com VIP team in identifying new business opportunities. He holds a BA in New Media from Emerson College and resides in the greater New York area with his wife and 2 children. Thank you and welcome, Paul.
Thanks, Drew.
Our Fireside.
Yeah, really excited to be
question.
here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, right, first question is, where are you and how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I am in New York. I live in the Hudson Valley, a little outside of New York City, and doing great. You know, we had the Thanksgiving holiday here in the United States last week, and took the opportunity to take some time off and recharge and spend some time with the family. But also, that kicks off here in the United States, at least, the kind of big end of year buying season and holiday shopping spree with Black Friday and Cyber Monday. So just a really exciting time to be, working on e-commerce and Woo.
Yes, those are awesome times to take breaks, but at the same time, for so many of us, it's also a very busy time in the e-commerce world, making sure things are up, things are running, things are performing at the level they need to.
That's right. Yeah, it's the busy season for sure.
I would be remiss to not ask about how WooCommerce has coped with the pandemic for these past 2 years.
Yeah, it's been a very interesting position. So operationally, right, you mentioned Automattic is a distributed company. We've been remote first from the beginning. So in many ways, our workforce was set up for success here, right? We've just always worked this way, in a remote first way. And certainly many of us have had some disruptions with having, family members and kids and stuff invading our workspace. But for the most part, it's been business as usual here from, again, kind of like a day-to-day operations perspective, but certainly in terms of our customers and how we've had to respond over the last 21 months or so has been, nothing but unusual, right? Since really March 2022, a little bit earlier than that, we've just seen a tremendous demand for what we do here, right? And with physical storefronts being closed and many stores moving online or redoubling their efforts in their online sales channels, that's created a significant amount of demand for what we do here at Woo. And we've had to, for the most part, the product and platform has met the needs that merchants have. But what we've really seen actually is, particularly in kind of the earlier days of the pandemic and the lockdown and quarantines, were overwhelming demands for support. And so our team really leaned in, and we had at one point, in early, or I guess late Q1 of 2020, we had the entire team working on support because we had, again, just this tremendously stressful, hard time that our merchants and community were going through, and we wanted to be there to help them, right? And that was the best thing that we could do at the time. The product really met their needs, but they needed help to just figure out how to get their stores online with WooCommerce as quickly as possible.
has that need for support leveled out over time, or is that kind of continued to kind of increase and we've got a new normal?
So well, I would say it certainly has leveled out, but at a much higher degree, right? There are a lot of stores that came online over the last 20 months. But I would say, yeah, for the most part, those sort of trends have evened out a little bit. We saw a big rush early in, again, kind of March and April in 2020, as stores were looking to come online or reinvest in their existing sales channels, as they were now, it was almost their only sales channel. And so we saw, a corresponding spike in support demands around that time. But it is, we've both through staff additions and just sort of the macroeconomic trends of COVID sort of starting to level out over time, have started to see that the support demands level out as well.
Do you think that, though, fundamentally the relevance for e-commerce has shifted for small to medium-sized businesses?
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's, one of the big learnings that we've seen over this time period has been how it's kind of pulled forward a lot of e-commerce activity, right? And it's actually, I think a little bit less here in the United States, but in other parts of the world, has had a really permanent change in behaviors, right? And as certainly here in the United States as well, I think just to a much smaller degree, where people were already fairly accustomed to shopping online or using digital payment methods. In other parts of the world, like in Mexico, we saw an over 50% increase in online sales due to COVID. I think in Brazil is about twice the rate of adoption in the United States. In India, I think, eMarketer is, I'm sorry, it wasn't eMarketer, but I'm forgetting the source. But there's been forecasts that India will triple over the next few years in terms of global, GMV sales in, that is e-commerce sales in India, right? So I think COVID, certainly, I think everybody thinks this is not a unique perspective from Woo, but that it is, where people were maybe hesitant or where there was poor infrastructure for selling online, COVID has really changed a lot of that and been really forced to sort of rapidly build that infrastructure, drive adoption of payment methods or some of these things where, again, it was just maybe not something that people were accustomed to or had some reservations about or whatever. People have quickly gotten over those reservations, and it is now it represents a permanent shift. It's very sticky.
That makes a ton of sense. And though we want to get back to normal, I hope we can use these learnings from these now 2 years within the pandemic, and obviously it continues on, and try to make our global economy as strong as possible. And e-commerce is going to be the way to do that. Now I'm going to kind of shift gears now, looking towards the future. What do you see as some of the biggest opportunities for WooCommerce in 2022, 2023, something like that?
Yeah, sure. So, WooCommerce is already huge. There's about $32 billion in GMV that will run through this platform this year. About 30% of stores powered by WooCommerce. Just an incredibly, massively popular platform, right? And millions of stores have thus trusted their livelihoods and businesses to us. So we take that role very seriously. So a lot of what we'll be doing as we come into 2022, and these again are things that we are already doing, but are really redoubling efforts around, or investments in things like performance, scalability, security, right? These are things that never go out of style and are just hugely important to sort of the considerations of people running their stores online. They want that peace of mind, right? And that's something that, as again, the makers of this platform, we take very seriously. So that's one thing just that we'll continue to invest in the coming year plus. I would also say just sort of simplifying the experience for WooCommerce. That is, I think it represents a tremendous opportunity for this platform. And we've seen the developer community, the web professional community is a huge part of the WordPress ecosystem, and it's almost a superpower. I think to the degree that there's like a moat around WordPress, it is this massive community of web pros who we have, essentially selling WordPress and WooCommerce and bringing it to market with millions of small businesses all over the globe. We need to make the platform easier for those customers, those merchants, right? So we'll always embrace developers, and yeah, I'm happy to talk about a little bit of what we're doing there as well as we come into 2022. But really, we're all building things for the store owner at the end of the day, or the merchant or the seller, whatever you want to call it. And they have busy lives, and they're not it's not their they won't they don't need to be web technology professionals to get another sale or to reach another customer or to build a great customer relationship, right? So where we can, we're trying to simplify the platform and make it much easier for, again, kind of the end customer to use. And that way developers can really focus on what they're good at. So, you'll see things like as WordPress is bringing full site editing to, the WordPress core platform, the WooCommerce team embracing that in 2022, further adoption of things like Gutenberg and block editing, and again, just kind of bringing the power of e-commerce into the hands of the merchants and not necessarily having to depend upon a developer for every single thing that they want to do. And again, really enabling our web professional and developer communities to focus on those kind of harder to solve problems.
Yeah, I think that that's a massive opportunity for our open web community on WordPress is to all be a part of making it easier for everybody to get online. So I think putting focus on that and helping people realize that that's where there's going to be a lot of opportunity and a lot of market gaps in the future. I think that would be, that's a tremendous insight. One of the things that we think about as we're in a market with many players in the e-commerce space is WooCommerce might not be the first name that pops into people's heads when they think e-commerce. What are some of the strategies around making WooCommerce popular or more of a brand name type thing?
It's a great question, and very much on our mind today. It is one of the things that is like most, I would just say personally frustrating to me is, we talked about WooCommerce powers 30% of sites on the web, stores on the web. $32 billion will flow through this platform just this year. That's a significant percentage of just the overall GMV on, the global GMV, right? That is
market share is there, yeah.
That's right. It's a tremendously just popular platform. But outside of the e-commerce or maybe sort of fintech communities, many people don't have a lot of awareness of WooCommerce, right? So that is like, you hit the nail on the head there. And it's not something that I think certainly people have awareness of WordPress much more generally, but maybe not WooCommerce. So I think there's some like conflation that happens there as well. Yeah. But that's just a big priority for us as we come into 2022, as well as raising awareness of WooCommerce. And in the process, certainly helping attract and bring more merchants to the platform. But in the process of doing that, creating opportunities for the web professional community as well. We'll be investing really big in our agency programs in 2022, and probably have some announcements to make, not today, but in Q1. So it's really only a few months away that we'll be starting to share a little bit more detail here. But I think this is an area where we just haven't done a good enough job of working with this massive community that exists around, WooCommerce, let alone WordPress, of agencies, developers, freelancers who play a really critical role in helping bring stores online. And I think we could be doing a lot more there around certifications and training, and as I said, creating a lot more opportunities and leads to developers in our ecosystem to help connect them with stores who have a need for their services. And in the process, again, helping bring more Woo stores online in the first place.
Exactly. And I think that's kind of the one thing that we could, we all do is, we all are helping people come online, build stores or some kind of online presence. And that's something that anybody can do is make sure people understand some of the technologies that web pros ourselves that we're using in order to power the open web. And getting involved in some level of the open source project of contributing there. That's also a wonderful thing that anybody can do to help really share and make the brands bigger, better, all those kinds of things.
That's right.
We've touched on this a bit in terms of how to make WooCommerce more popular, or you kind of mentioned some of these these figures, like Mexico during the pandemic, 50% increase. Brazil saw a big surge. What are some of the trends outside of the United States in terms of or features or emerging markets that you've seen?
Yeah, I would say, more than any one particular emerging market, I mean, and certainly, again, I've mentioned a few already, but I think the big trend that we're seeing is that like adoption, e-commerce is a global trend, right? And it's not just where we sort of sit here in North America or wherever, but that, again, we're seeing some really amazing growth in smaller, sort of less developed markets. And I think, WooCommerce is in a position to meet the needs of many merchants in those markets by virtue of being such a widely adopted platform globally. It's been translated into many languages, like the core platform itself, WooCommerce has, as well as WordPress, not to mention many of the extensions and products, themes, et cetera, that you would use to extend WooCommerce, right? But so a lot of the work that we're doing is just to kind of further that effort and better localize WooCommerce and meet the needs of these of merchants that are coming online in smaller markets where maybe we haven't yet been able to prioritize in the past. So things like WooCommerce payments. We started the year in only the United States. We're now in 18 countries and are supporting, basically every payment method under the sun in each of those countries. You'll see us investing further in localization of, some of our additional solutions around WooCommerce shipping as well. So this is, just something that is, I think relative to our competitors, this is a strength that WooCommerce has, is the ability not just the sort of localization in general, but also right. What the open source community can do to kind of fill in some of those gaps, right? That the WooCommerce team doesn't have to be responsible for localizing in every single country or bringing a payment method to bear in every country or a shipping solution or whatever it might be. That's the great thing about this ecosystem, is that if there's some shipping carrier in South Africa or something that, again, maybe it's on our list of priorities, but it's not quite in the same priority position for us as it is for you, then you can go and build that integration and, get up and running with whomever, again, payment provider or shipping provider or whatever your needs are, and not have a dependency on us. So again, that's, I just think, one of the real benefits of being part of this ecosystem is you have that optionality.
Right, and that's exciting to me. I think about some of Newfold Digital and Bluehost's really desire to globalize, but you quickly run into localization issues when you're trying to globalize a brand. And WooCommerce and being on the backbone of WordPress gives you such an opportunity to localize quickly and open the door to say, yeah, and if there's any gaps, we've just created business and really market opportunities while going into emerging markets. And so that's what's like so exciting about these types of trends outside the United States.
Yeah, that's right. And we talk a lot about small businesses as a customer, right? And that's really what Woo was really focused on. I mean, we meet the needs of anything from a sole proprietor up to mid-market and enterprise companies, but certainly the vast majority of stores using WooCommerce are small businesses. But I also like to point out to people that many of the people that are building the solutions that use for WooCommerce are small businesses themselves. We sell hundreds of extensions and themes in our marketplace, and these are not 1,000-person companies, but often just a single developer building, kind of scratching an itch and building a solution for other stores to go and build with, or 2, 3, 4-person teams. So, I think the WooCommerce community is just very interesting in that way, in that it's, we're building solutions for small businesses, but many of the folks building those solutions are small businesses themselves.
Right, and those kind of, now I'm going to shift over here, our audience for Cloudbazaar. I mean, we're talking to an audience of thousands of web professional developers, implementers, enablers, however they get categorized at times. How can WooCommerce help the web pro? Is a question I have.
Yeah, it's a great question. And so, again, something that's very much on our mind these days in this, we've launched or have had this sort of nascent agency program where we work with web professionals called Woo Experts in the past, and are in the middle of completely reinvigorating that and relaunching it. And again, not to share like too many details here, but I think there's a really great opportunity for us to work together, right? We want to see more WooCommerce stores come online. And we know that today that and into the future as well, agencies and developers and web professionals will play a really critical role in making that happen. Even as we simplify the platform, again, I talked a little bit about full site editing and just trying to make the tool a little bit more accessible and intuitive to the end customer and the merchant. It's still really hard to start a store. It's not just about the web technology itself, but having an expert guide you along, what are the best sort of shipping policies to adopt, or who's the best payments provider to meet my needs for, my customers in these particular geographies, right? These are hard things for the uninitiated to go and figure out, right? So there's some things, of course, that we can do as makers of the platform to better guide our merchants as they are, the more kind of DIY merchant. But really leveraging agencies that bring stores online is both a big part of what has gotten Woo to where it is today, and very much into the future as well. So, you can look to us for things like improved APIs. We're doing a lot of core work on that kind of core developer experience in WooCommerce, the core platform, as well as financial incentives from us. We know that, many of our kind of proprietary competitors have been investing deeply there. Again, you will be sending leads, things like discounts to extensions. You can see that's kind of all in the mixes as we rethink how we can work more closely with the web professional community.
Yeah, and I kind of wanted to touch on that piece. You mentioned some of the competitors in the industry. You got obviously Wix, Shopify. They're really putting a pretty strong emphasis on the web pro market. If you're looking at kind of what their activities are. What are some of your takeaways from some of the other major players putting an emphasis on the web pro?
Yeah, well, I think they have to, right? Many of these platforms came from a world where they built great kind of turnkey solutions for the DIY merchant, someone who just wants to come along and they've got an idea for a store. I want to build Paul's bike shop or whatever, and I can point and click my way to do that. But you very quickly grow beyond the bounds of what you can do with those platforms by just pointing and clicking, right? So, and you can actually look at it sort of, if you look at WordPress and the WooCommerce community is almost coming from the other end of that. We've been really great at meeting the needs of developers, but probably haven't modernized the experience enough such that, again, things like full site editing, we're doing that work now, but you could argue maybe should have done that 5 years ago, right? And that's sort of the trend that we've seen is some of these platforms, our competitors, proprietary competitors, building to the turnkey solution, they now have to make up ground on the developer side and build a great developer platform, where WordPress and WooCommerce have had a really great developer platform, but maybe traded off a little bit on the merchant experience. And so now that's a lot of the work that we have to do, right? So we're kind of coming at it from different ends. So it's not surprising to me that some of our proprietary competitors are going, investing and trying to build these relationships with agencies. But I think, marketing to agencies or web professionals is very different than building for the web professional, right? And I think that's something that is core to Woo's DNA, and we've been doing from the very beginning, and will continue to.
Yeah, and I like how you think about it from kind of two different ends where maybe let's take for example Shopify, really kind of merchant focused experience, really all-in-one vertical solutions, right, for the specific customer. They're coming this way, and WooCommerce really kind of built for more of a web pro at first, and then kind of now moving upstream into that evolution of an e-commerce all-in-one solution. You mentioned full site editing as a part of that strategy. Is there anything else for WooCommerce in terms of simplifying that online presence journey?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you've seen probably some of this in the evolution of Woo over the last couple of years, where we're now recommending certain extensions depending on your store type and what your needs are. Often marketing extensions, because that's a lot of what we've seen is merchants have a really great idea for a product. Again, the kind of DIY uninitiated merchant has a really great idea for a product, and they can, even if they're like, have the fortitude to kind of go and figure out WooCommerce and install it and set it up and load their products and get to that point, they often don't know what to do next. And that's what I'm getting at, is that, the web professional community, again, a lot of what we bring today are those technical skill sets, but I think into the future, in addition to those technical skill sets, is really just a familiarity with the problems that merchants are trying to solve. What is, again, the best kind of shipping solution, or payment solution, or some of these decisions that are so critical, should I offer free shipping, right? Those are like really critical decisions that impact the success of your business ultimately, and your own livelihood. So I think I've gotten a little afield of what you were asking, but we definitely do try to balance that need, right? Of how do we build a core open source platform that is robust and easy for developers to deploy in any shape or size for their customers, while also building a product experience on top of that that is oriented towards the needs of a do-it-yourself merchant who doesn't necessarily have a developer or need a developer to develop, or have a budget for a developer or a web professional. Right? We need to make it intuitive and modern and easy for them to use without trading off too much on the developer side, and vice versa.
Right, and because you don't want to ever lose any of the extensibility. And for me, I see some of those advancements coming in some of those little micro journeys that merchants need to go through in order to get a store online. For example, you've mentioned it, but the WooPayments. The WooPayments was, how do I take credit cards online as a business? It was, that's a hurdle for so many people. For Woo to come in and say, hey, we're actually going to have a solution here for this, ideally to just, obviously you can go use whatever you'd like, but if you don't know, we can actually try to make this as easy as possible for you. Us at Bluehost, we're trying to think about those same things, clear the hurdles for individuals so that they can get online and be successful.
That's right. And payments, we saw, is actually a major point of friction for again, the DIY merchant. Developers, no question, they knew, they had their sort of preferred provider, or, they had at least a handful of folks, depending on the type of merchant or store or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I think for merchants, Stripe, Authorize.net, Square, PayPal, you may have some awareness of some of these folks, but probably not many of them, probably PayPal as a consumer. But I think for many folks, that's a hard decision to make, of who am I going to build my business relationship with? And, I think part of what we've done is say, that's not a decision you should even really wrestle with at this point. We're building a great payment solution and financial services. If you're trusting your store to WooCommerce as a platform, you could trust your payments to us as well.
That's excellent. All right, I'm going to get into a couple of kind of bigger questions as we're coming up on time here.
Yeah.
How do you think about the next 100 million small and micro businesses that will come online and use WooCommerce differently?
A good question. I think I've said that on every question you've asked, so I'm sorry. They're all good questions. I would say that
I'm prepared. Yeah.
Yeah. We're still early, right? E-commerce is, I think eMarketer says it's going to go 50, the GMV, global GMV will grow 50% between today and 2025, wow. Right? That is a massive number. And when we're already talking about trillions of dollars, and it's a $5 trillion market or whatever today, $4 trillion market. So, I think to one degree, again, it's early. The next 100 million small businesses that come online, almost like, who knows, right? That is such a huge number. Right. And so much is so much has happened over the last 20 months, let alone what the next 20 months will look like. That is so unpredictable.
Right.
That,
week to week, even it feels sometimes.
Day to day. Oh, right, exactly. It's just that kind of dynamic, fast-paced, hyper-growth environment, right? That it's hard to predict exactly what the future looks like. I would also say that, similar to what I was saying earlier, that this is the superpower of the WordPress community, is the web professional community within WordPress is, as the makers of a platform like WooCommerce, we don't have to have a response to every single thing that comes up, right? We can kind of sit back and say, the web professional tend to be on the bleeding edge of a lot of this stuff, right? And we don't know, is this going to emerge into a trend, or is it going to be just something that sort of goes away in 6 months or a year or whatever? I don't know, whatever particular feature you have in mind, right? So that I think, and not just like the web professionals, but folks who build solutions around WooCommerce as well. We don't have to necessarily like own everything in the ecosystem, and very much do not want to, right? That is the power of this community. So we often look to the web professionals for that kind of guidance and feedback and insights to say, what are the trends that you're seeing and what do you need from us, right? What can we do better at the platform level to help make, okay, maybe that was like, you've done 3 or 4, now 10 of the same projects that all have the same, what you thought were kind of custom needs, but it's now emerged into a pattern, right? So what can we do as the platform to help make that easier for our web developer community or web professional community? That tends to be how we think about these, right? So I mean, I certainly have my own perspective on where things are going, and I think it looks a lot like, frankly, what WooCommerce is really good at, which is, the emergence of this kind of multifaceted e-commerce. A lot of how we talk about e-commerce today is really retail, and it's putting physical goods in a box and shipping it, right? And that is, I think, going to still be, certainly into the future, the majority of e-commerce. But with WooCommerce, you can also sell tickets. You can, build a crowdfunding solution. You can sell memberships. You can sell virtual goods. You can build a two-sided marketplace, right? You can build really any type
Creator
of commerce
economy
experience.
Yeah.
And exactly right. So as you look at the kind of creator economy and folks who are not just selling physical goods, or have some, YouTube channel or something that they're TikTok that they're monetizing as kind of the core part of their platform, so to speak, WooCommerce is a really great platform to sit alongside that as well. And again, you can sell physical goods, you sell memberships, you could, swag, right? You're selling t-shirts, to tickets to live events, to memberships. There's a really cool company called Craft Peak that does this for breweries. And in the United States, the craft brewery scene has like exploded over the last few years. And they use WooCommerce to build websites for brewers that, again, talk about like COVID impacts. You can't really, at least historically, it's been very hard to ship alcohol in the United States. It's like down to the zip code it's regulated at, right? So Craft Peak has built a great platform that has enabled brewers to sell memberships or tickets to like a special release, which is, a very popular thing these days. And certainly like, deliveries and local pickups for beer. But as COVID has sort of relaxed some of those regulations around shipping beer, they were able to just add that along to, the 3 or 4 or 10 different things that they were already selling. And again, that's just one example, but I think really represents what the future looks like, is that it's not just about putting things in a box and shipping it, but commerce is really going to be feathered into almost every experience on the web.
I think that's a really great observation, a great example, because the open web will continue to evolve as well as we move into, open web, web 2.0 into web 3.0, and trying to get some more control, more security, more user-focused open web interactions. WooCommerce is the one primed to ride that wave with a web pro community. And it's really like, hey, who's paying attention, who can see these market gaps, who can see potential opportunities and provide them. And I think that's what excites me about the future.
Yeah, same. And, I've been lucky enough to have been in building things on the web now for about 20 years. And you see these sort of trends, right? And things that were old are now new again. And, we saw this even with WordPress, right? The kind of decentralized, the blogging world started in a very decentralized way. And then we saw things like Facebook and Twitter kind of come in and solve problems through centralization, right? Discovery of your content was really hard as like a WordPress blogger, and they solved that problem, but not without significant trade-offs. So that's what's very exciting to me. Again, not to get into like too deep of a rabbit hole around Web3 and crypto, and I'm certainly not an expert by any means, and frankly skeptical of some of the applications of it that we're seeing today. But I think if it helps drive better awareness and appreciation of decentralization and ownership across the web, then that is a really healthy thing, and something that I'm particularly excited about.
Absolutely. Paul, thank you so much for your time. I've really appreciated our fireside chat. Thank you for coming to Cloudbazaar.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you. And we'll open it up for Q&A. Let's jump into some of the questions that have come up after our talk, Paul. I'm going to get first. There's a couple of web pro specific type items, and you kind of touched on it. We call them Woo experts at times. Is there any specific programs around web pros for WooCommerce now or in the future, perhaps?
Yeah, so we have 3 programs kind of that I would say that are somewhat related to web pros. So Woo Experts is a agency program for, well, a program for agencies, essentially a directory where
Right.
we can help connect our merchants to complementary web professionals, right, to help them bring a store online or to help make a modification to their store. We also have a good partnership with the folks at Codable, who run a WordPress kind of talent marketplace, for lack of a better word, where you can bring your projects to them and web professionals will can kind of bid on the projects. So those are a couple different areas where we help connect stores to our web professional community. And again, that's a big part of our focus into 2022, and a lot of the work that we'll be doing a lot of work on reinvigorating that program. We also run an affiliate program, which is, I think many web professionals find a lot of value in that as well. And lastly, we also have the WooCommerce Marketplace, which is an opportunity for web professionals and developers to build solutions for WooCommerce and sell them as products, right? So we have hundreds of extensions,
Extensions, yeah, they're kind of more specifically extensions.
Yeah, extensions and themes, and it's a we have hundreds of additional products that complement WooCommerce in that marketplace, and we see many web professionals kind of build a product to meet the need of a particular customer, and then they say, oh wow, this is actually like really useful to a much wider group, and we can work together to bring that into the marketplace and help make sure that you get connected to WooCommerce stores.
So yes, there are many opportunities for web pros to integrate themselves into the WooCommerce environment and really, or the WordPress open source project. All right, there's a couple of questions here that they build some context first here. So while WooCommerce focuses on e-commerce website centric solutions, Shopify offers a more holistic solution for managing the e-commerce business, not just the store. Does WooCommerce plan to expand its offering to more solutions around managing e-commerce business and not just WooCommerce website?
Yes, we are, not a lot to share there in terms of like going forward, but certainly, we intend to expand what we do. I would point to like MailPoet, our acquisition of MailPoet about a year ago, actually almost exactly a year ago. If you're unfamiliar with MailPoet, a small email marketing company built specifically for email marketing for WordPress. And so we brought that team in about a year ago and have been investing in that platform and adding a lot more like kind of commerce specific functionality. So, that's just one example, but certainly something that we intend to continue to expand into the future. We think that, again, as I said earlier, we don't need to own everything in the ecosystem, but we do pay, particularly close attention to where those points of friction are in that kind of merchant journey on the platform, right? Exactly. And there are some opportunities we see to bring that kind of closer to the core platform and improve the overall experience as a result.
Right, and I see that as, you can either think of WooCommerce as a store, or you can think of it as a merchant experience. And I really feel like that's kind of where the evolution of the platform kind of really will take it.
That's right. And even, going beyond sort of what you would consider traditional e-commerce, right? We launched our in-person payments product just a couple of months ago. So, really like not just e-commerce, but commerce in general, right? And meeting the needs of brick and mortar stores and, kind of centralizing both their in-person and online payments, purchases all in one place.
Yeah, and I think that this next question kind of like is open-ended for us, Paul, to kind of get into kind of what we are passionate about. But it says, does WooCommerce plan to invest in technologies that enable web pros to manage e-commerce sites better? And obviously the short answer would be yes, but there's a lot of
that's the easy answer.
Right.
Yeah, right. We're doing, I guess, there's probably a lot of different directions to take that question. I don't know exactly what they're getting at here, but I think something like scalability and performance and security certainly weighs on the minds of web professionals, and ensuring that WooCommerce just kind of delivers that confidence and peace of mind to our mutual customers, the merchant. And that's obviously something that, and many web professionals spend a lot of time just kind of managing the store from that perspective. So that's something that we will always continue to be working on and are putting a lot of efforts into this coming year. From a more like user experience standpoint as well, just the things like order management are areas where we're focusing as well, and leveraging full site editing to improve that experience. So, that's again something that we're always doing, but those are a couple of areas that will be focused this coming year.
Yeah, and whenever I speak with web pros, or I'm talking to somebody who's often helping people implement sites or something along those lines, it's not that they always want just something that's endlessly flexible, but they need something that's very helpful for them to speed up the time to publish or speed up the time to help a customer get online. And so something like WooPayments even is a technology that is invested not just for an end user, but for a web pro to say, we're easily going to transition somebody from no payments to payments with a solution that's very quick and easy.
That's right, exactly. I'd also point to, not just WooCommerce, but some of the additional services that Automatic makes that are very complementary to web professionals as well, particularly Jetpack, things like backups, security monitoring, performance monitoring, page caching, or image caching rather, a lot of performance tools. I think it's just, Jetpack search, right? There's a lot of products in kind of the umbrella of services that Jetpack offers that are highly complementary to stores too. And that, again, help deliver that peace of mind to the web professional and the end merchant, right? Like having real-time backups is just an amazing kind of amazingly powerful feature to have when, your business is mission critical, right? Anyway, so I think that, certainly there's a lot of stuff that we're doing within Woo, but if you look at kind of the broader services that Automatic offers as well, there's just a lot that we're doing to help support stores. Yeah,
and Bluehost, like we're entering that space as well with our Maestro platform to try to make the web pro experience as easy as possible. All right, last question that we have time for. We're going to get into it. You kind of mentioned it a little bit in our last answer about technologies that we invest in, but full site editing. This was specifically full site editing in context of a store, but what does full site editing, why are you excited about it in terms of WooCommerce?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about democratizing commerce, or WordPress's mission is democratizing publishing, and if we sort of borrowed that for Woo, and our mission is to democratize commerce, and I think that WordPress and WooCommerce have been incredibly successful at that, but there's always room for improvement, and I think where we need to go is making WooCommerce much more intuitive and accessible to the merchant, right? And I think full site editing and Gutenberg represent a really giant leap forward in our ability to do exactly that. The ability to visually edit your store and merchandise, and there were some sort of products available, obviously, kind of website builder, or not website builders, page builders in the WordPress community, but I think full site editing is, and that kind of core approach is what's best for the community, and something that we really, again, will be leveraging this coming year. But it really, to me, represents that almost a realization of that mission, right? Where you don't necessarily have to depend on someone with technical skills to get your store online, or to be able to make the changes to your store that you want to make.
Absolutely. Well, Paul, thank you for your time. I think that's where we're going to be able to get to today with our Q&A. Thank you very much for coming.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for all the questions, everybody.
Thank you.